Welcome, Booktube. My name is Dan, and I am so happy to meet you. I was inspired by discovering Booktube recently. In fact, I discovered YouTube recently. I figured I had to join the modern world. And one great thing that I found on there, among a lot of other stuff that was not as great, was Booktube. And I've watched some of your videos and really enjoyed them. So I'd like to add my little bit to that community. And so this is my newbie introduction to myself, I guess. And I'm answering a few of the questions that a lot of the people have answered. And the first is why start this? And it is for that reason to hopefully meet some of you and discuss books with you. All right, so what's unique about me? Well, I don't know. I mean, I've lived in many countries around the world. I've lived abroad, whatever that means, for most of my adult life. I'm in Thailand right now. I've lived in, I quit my PhD. I did study literature, French, and I quit my PhD to go to Peace Corps in Africa. And then I started teaching in order to come to Asia. And I've also spent quite a bit of time in Latin America, as French and Spanish are my better languages, and the only languages besides English that I can read in. So one of the things that, what kind of books will I be reading? I like to read world literature, and I'm always wishing there's more in translation. I have read most of the Nobel Prize winners, but that leaves a lot of countries out. And half the world, China has got two, India has one Nobel laureate. So I should read more of the Bookers and some of the others. But maybe you have books to suggest to me from different countries around the world that I can find in English. And one of the interesting things about following me might be that when you live abroad, now Bangkok has tons of great bookstores, but a lot of places that I've lived didn't, and so the whatever falls to your hand that's in a language that you can read, I end up reading lots of different and weird and interesting things. I recently found a book in Jalapa, Mexico, where I was living, had one little bookstore, and I read all of their English books pretty much. And by the end, I was reading weird things, and I read a really interesting book about a gentleman who went to experience a few days of the life of the people in the off-sea drilling platforms in the North Sea, and that weird life that they live. So weird books like that fall to my hand. I, at various points, even had to read things I wouldn't normally read, like your sort of business books or self-helpy books. I do like classics, as you might have guessed. I'm very old-fashioned. I have read a lot, or maybe most of the great books as well. I go through these sort of kicks where I'm like, oh, I'll read the great books or the Nobels or I'll get the reading list from like a master's in, whatever, German or some, whatever language, from one of the universities, and I'll try to read books from that list. Um, don't read as many popular new titles. I tend to read used books. So, spoiler alert, I won't be doing spoiler alerts because almost all the books I'll be talking about are old enough now that I feel pretty safe that you might know the twists by now, if you're ever going to. And let's see, why do I love to read? Well, I love to breathe. To me, it's the same thing. Um, what book began my journeys? Oh, heavens. Don Quixote. I mean, who knows? Voltaire. I do love picaresque books. I also love folk tales. I love trickster tales. That's my trope, I guess. Don Quixote, trickster. Um, what are some challenges? Well, yes, affording the new books is tough. If anyone wants to send me books to Thailand, I'd gladly receive them. But as I say, in Bangkok we do have some great bookstores, including a couple used bookstores. So, but it tends to be thrillers, that kind of pulpy stuff. I do love genres, so don't get me wrong. The only thing is, I don't say like, oh, I'm a fantasy reader or sci-fi or mysteries, because those people tend to be such. It's sort of like the board gamers, now that that's become a big thing. They tend to be so serious and immersed in that I can't, compete with people who are like fantasy readers and read, you know, 8 volumes of every series that comes out. So I do read genres. I read most of any bookstore that I can come into. Even read when I was a young lad. I actually have an interesting insight into, I don't know, into the female psyche or something, but I lived in an auntie's trailer. I grew up with a hippie mom and moving around the country. And at one point, we're in my mom's British. We're in my auntie's trailer in Florida, and I was in her room, and it was full of romance novels. So I even read romance for a year, very impressionable age. Um, so I'm not a snob. Um, I do prefer lighter stuff, not so much. I was glad when world literature got popular for a while there, but was a little saddened that most of it was sort of trauma literature. Everything had to have, like even Kite Runner, which is a great book, but it's got this, sort of traumatic stuff in there. I mean, that is the reality of a lot of our world, isn't it? So I don't deny it, but I prefer to read. I like humor, philosophical stuff. All right. When did I start to read? Well, very young. Very young. I went to a Montessori school. Um, I remember the True Value books. That was a great series. Cochise and the Value of Honesty. Um, let's see. And I was writing since I was a child as well. Full disclosure, I'm an author, but I will not be bringing that into this sphere of the BookTube. Now, I should say with BookTube, as I am quite old-fashioned, the emphasis is definitely on book and a lot less on tube. I am not, here I am as I make a video to share with you, but I am just new to all this social media and all of this stuff. What kind of things I read? I think I've pretty much addressed that. I think I've covered most of the questions, fun facts, or other things about me. Oh, well, I think I've given you a couple ideas there about who I am and what I might be about and who might enjoy having conversations with me about books. So please do join. I see that many of you are lonely. I'm sorry to hear it. It can be lonely sometimes living abroad. In Thailand, I don't speak the language, unfortunately. I did work hard to learn my Mandarin. That didn't succeed, but yeah, I'm new to Thai, so I don't speak the language where I'm living now. But yeah, so don't be lonely. Reach out and let's chat about books. Nice to meet you.